to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 16th day. Pretty cold and chilly across the country. A lot of areas like mine that got a lot of snow and stuff here, so I hope everybody's staying safe and warm and all that good stuff. I got a great show with you tonight. I'm going to talk about the Cowboys and the Eagles, how the approach to their terrible performances will how they'll be handled. Plus, I got Rich Ferris coming in 30 minutes past the hour. Going to talk about that, and we'll go over a few of the games today. And of course, I will finish them up tomorrow. Do a little good scope, bad scope, where I was right, where I was wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of stuff here lately. Hard to predict these guys. Let's go ahead and take our first and only break, and I'll be back here in 49 seconds. We'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty then. For those of you who normally see me on Facebook, got suspended there. My guess is somebody they feel threatened by the success of my show, and they look for something to turn me in on Facebook. That's the only thing I can think of. So I got suspended or whatever, and I don't know how to put into the little pill thing, but I don't really care. I'm now live on Instagram, though, and, of course, we'll always be on Facebook, and, of course, you can see the podcast replay on Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast, or you can still be on the X app. Not a lot of haters on the X app, if you know what I mean. Okay, let's see. So last night, Eagles Bucks. The Eagles look like a team with a talented roster that now have recycled 2 coordinators. And last year, remember, they had the easiest schedule, and Nick Sirianni's annex hollering at how about them Cowboys after beating Dallas last year. Kind of reminded me of Bill O'Brien hollering at fans. Now that Shane Steichen is gone, and with the Colts, and of course even a mediocre but not as bad as the defensive coordinator now, Jonathan Gannon, who's now with Arizona. You got a Matt Patricia on defense who replaced a guy named Sean Desani in the middle of the season here. A lot of confusion, a lot of missed tackles, not to mention equally confused offensive Brian Johnson. My guess is Jeffrey Lurie and Jim, the owner there, and Howie Roseman will demand changes for both coordinators and or assistants. If not, even after going to a Super Bowl, if not firing outright Nick Sirianni, looked like last year's team throughout the season last year, kind of thought that was lightning in the bottle. Very talented offensive line. Now Jason Kelce, 36-year-old. This is why I said they wouldn't get back to the Super Bowl. 36-year-old Jason Kelce said he will retire after this game has ended. Lane Johnson, 34-year-old Lane Johnson, will probably be behind him in the next year or so. So they're going to have to replace probably a Hall of Fame center, one of the better right tackle / left tackles in the game there, and Lane Johnson here. So Tampa, on the flip side, last night, they reminded me of the 2010 Seattle team that won the NFC West with a 7-9 record. Okay, you got your 12th man, you got your mediocre quarterback, Matt Hasselbeck, and this year you've got mediocre quarterback there, and Baker Mayfield. But had a little bit of momentum, had the home playoff game. They end up knocking out 11-5 Saints team. And, of course, they got beat in the second round by the Bears that year with Jay Cutler. So that's about what this team reminds me of, what happened last night. But, you look at this team, this ownership, they just don't accept mediocrity like that. A lot of missed tackles. They kind of look like a Big 12 team last night, Pickles. They look like Oklahoma and Texas a few years ago when it's 48-40, when every pass is just a long pass and 5 or 6 missed tackles and the guy scores. They look like a college team out there. You got them. They went through 3 coordinators in less than a year and a half. You can see it. I don't know how hurt Jalen Hurts really is. The offense looks lost. All the balls were they were off by a few seconds there. So you look at this ownership and management. I mean, they fired Doug Peterson. They fired Chip Kelly. They moved off of they moved off of Andy Reid after going to a Super Bowl. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl, but when they see things are starting to get a little bit low, he'll make a change there at the coaching staff. So, I'm not really worried too much about them. Now, the flip side, and there's a lot of similarities here, okay? And then you got a team like the Cowboys who, Jerry Jones never likes to admit he's wrong about anything. He's always the last Netflix to stream Inside the NFL for 5 episodes of the season. Great. Yeah, I'll be watching Netflix. That just popped up on my screen. Okay. So then you look at a team like the Cowboys, another total no-show, probably as bad as people want to dog the Eagles out. The Cowboys had the worst performance of the weekend, being the number 2 overall seed, getting beat like that at home. That's what you would like to see out of a Baltimore team, maybe against Houston on Saturday. That's what you would see like a 90s Cowboys team with Jimmy Johnson on a bad Buffalo team, or a really good NFC team beating up on one of those 80s Denver Bronco teams that got handled, or that 94 49er team that just hammered. The NFC used to hammer those AFC teams. Those San Diego Chargers there, led by Junior Seau, just getting totally destroyed there. More of a good. So you think about a banged-up Tampa team that they beat last year. I think that it was probably the best group of looking back at this. And, they're not a bad group compared to the other groups since Jimmy Johnson, okay? I still think they're a little bit better than Tony Romo's teams, but they're really about the same. They played great in the regular season. They look great in September and October. By about Thanksgiving, then after Thanksgiving, they start to teeter off a little bit. And I'm talking about those Romo teams there, and they would, more often than not, they'd come in as a 2 or 3 seed, and they would have 13 win, whether it be from Jason Garrett or Wade Phillips, any of those guys. And you mishandled a snap there on an extra kick. They would get beat by a red-hot Giants team. They would lose on the road to a Packer team just like they lost. So it's really kind of the same team in its own. If you really think about this team compared to the other teams, I feel like I was, somewhat off about them. They're a little bit better, but they're not championship caliber. The truth of the matter is that, like I said, Jerry Jones at 81 years old, he will never, ever, he never likes to admit he made a mistake. By paying Dak the kind of money that he's paid. If you look at McCarthy there, 2020, they were 6-win team. They got Michael Parsons. 2021, they lose in the playoffs in the first round to the 49ers. Last year, they beat up a banged-up Tampa Bay team that I thought they would lose that, and they get their first road win in 30 years. Then they go on the road, get beat by the 49ers. This year got leveled by the same 49er team. Then they get beat by the Green Bay Packers like that. Now, it's hard for Jerry Jones to admit, I made a mistake. It's just so hard for him. Unlike Jeffrey Lurie, cut the bait and go on. Okay, Andy Reid, listen, he's got 2 Super Bowls. He got to the Super Bowl in 2005 or 4 or 5 back with the Eagles. But things were getting stale. The team seemed to be checking out. Mr. Lurie, he moves on. Chip Kelly won 10 games, but they looked like the defense was giving up a lot of points, wearing the defense out with those hurry-up offenses. So he decides to move on there. And, of course, we got Doug Peterson. They got the Super Bowl, but things kind of went off the rails with Carson Wentz. They looked like for about a year or so, they were checking out. He moved off. Unlike Jerry Jones, he will hang on to Jason Garrett for 4 or 5 years longer than he should have because he don't want to admit he's made a mistake. He's doing the same thing with McCartney. The stuff with Bill Parcells, it was a Jimmy Johnson thing. He still did not want, he still didn't want to give up total control of the team, even though he owns the stadium and owns everything around it. He still don't want that mega. People say, what about Jim Harbaugh, Bill Belichick? They'll butt heads with him the first day. Okay. Because he wants to do his stupid radio interviews. He wants to talk about how great they are, and he just wants that little bit of control. He just put Jimmy Johnson in the Hall of Fame when they both got gray hair. They're both in their 80s. He's a stubborn old man. I've said it 5 years ago. I'll say it again, not to be morbid, but when he dies, they'll win a Super Bowl again. When he dies and Steven takes over completely, then they'll win the Super Bowl again. Because it won't be so much about the ownership. He's so arrogant and narcissistic. He's narcissistic then. He's narcissistic now. He'll be narcissistic when they're putting him in the ground. That should be what they put on his tombstone. And I think about a guy like Dak Prescott, just like here in Tennessee. People say, man, looking at Baker Mayfield, for example. Yeah, they're scooting by. They're barely paying Baker Mayfield a borderline prove-it salary there. That's why they're getting around. Todd Bowles, yeah, he got the guys motivated. But when you pay this guy $35, $40 million, he's not worth it. Most of these quarterbacks are not worth it. They're not even worth half of what they're making, folks. Even the good ones. Most of them. Dak Prescott's not worth it, okay? He's a good guy. He's a good leader. He's worth about $23 million a year, not $43, okay? He's just not worth it. I'm here in Nashville. You had Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, people talk about Mike Vrabel and does Mike Vrabel that. Well, when they was paying Ryan Tannehill $7 million, they had a very good defense and a good running game, and then they had a healthy offensive line, and they were doing fine. They got all the way to the AFC Championship. They beat Baltimore, the number 2 seed. But when you pay him $32 million because the agent says pay him this, when nobody else in their right mind would do it, Tennessee does it. And then they teeter off and don't do nothing. They get their 1 seed. They get put out in the first round by Joe Burrow. And now they've had 2 losing seasons, and now they fired off Mike Vrabel. Okay? Most of these quarterbacks are not worth this. Okay? Tampa Bay fans, Listen, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. Say, we'll pay you backup money. We're going to draft a quarterback, Baker Mayfield. If you don't like it, there's a door. Thank you for your services. You got $250,000 because you won a playoff game. Okay? We know what you're like when we're getting a lot of money. Okay? That's the way these teams have to play hardball. You know? And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that's maybe they'll make a change in the middle of the week when he sleeps on it a few days, talking about Jerry Jones, and maybe they won't. Now, I guarantee in Philadelphia, they'll do something with those coordinators this year. I guarantee you that. They will do something this week. Excuse me. Offensive coordinator with the Saints, he's already been fired. This Carmichael guy. So I expect that. If not, just flat out. And by the way, Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat next year. It looks like they had, what do you call it? Lightning in the bottle. 32nd easiest schedule. Just everybody's in their prime at once. Had that healthy offensive line. And then you've got some good draft picks. You made a good move. Got AJ Brown. So let's see how that one plays out. But look at the difference there. They've been to 3 Super Bowls since the Cowboys have won one. They've been to 3 Super Bowls and they've won one. Okay, that's the difference between a guy who does not rest on his laurels in Jeffrey Lurie and a guy always looking in the past in Jimmy Johnson. So let's see how the two play out there. I expect Detroit, which I'll talk a little bit more about tomorrow. I expect them to beat Tampa this week and move on. They're a great story. People crying in the stands. It was a great night, Okay. Good scope, bad scope. Okay. Good scope. Kansas City, healthy at home. Donovan Smith back at left tackle. Rested starters there. Isaiah Pacheco, 89 yards, touchdown. The Dolphins look like a team that was cold, even though, by the way, did not watch that game. Pickles had a total change of heart. Got to thinking about it. Got to sleeping on it. Do not watch. Do not pay NBC, Peacock. Do not pay that money to watch that game. We've got to break these greedy owners and leagues. We've got to break them. Trying to do that in the middle of with inflation like this. Do not pay it. I did not pay it. I followed it on my phone. But I mean, that was the only game I did win, though. I had Kansas City and I had Pacheco with an anytime touchdown, 89 yards there. But Miami's about like the Cowboys. My guess is they beat up on bad teams. They struggle with physical teams, And but I was right about that. I mean, Kansas City got everybody back. Don't think they're going to make the Super Bowl, but I think that'll be a really good game. It depends on what Buffalo does. Depends on how healthy Buffalo is. They're going to have a 2-day advantage on Buffalo. Buffalo played Monday. They played Monday. But we'll see. I like the way Buffalo's playing, but I was right about that. They did beat up. Only touchdown was a Tyreek Hill touchdown here, and Kansas City took care of business. They're a tough out, man. They're tough out. You got right coach, right quarterback, right defensive coordinator. Good things can happen. You can fill in the spots everywhere else. Just take care of the line in front of Mahomes. You'll always have a chance, okay? Bad scope. Actually buying into the Cowboys at home. Dominance against Green Bay. Unprecedented. Ambushed at home at the first-year starter quarterback. Yeah, Jordan Love, it's his first year starting. He picked up about Thanksgiving, and he wasn't perfect post-Thanksgiving. I mean, the big Thanksgiving game, they beat up on Detroit, but it's like the light went off. There's no people up there. It's cold out there. I'm in Nashville. We've got about 5.5 inches of snow. We had 7 inches the other day. Ain't nothing to do up there but stay in, study football. It's cold up there in Green Bay, and he's locked in, man. He's locked in. And Dallas looks like Dallas. You heard me just tee off on them. But, only team that the Dallas really beat this year. They beat the Rams with $70 million in dead cap in their banged up secondary. They beat up on the NFC East when the Eagles started going downhill. They haven't beat anybody. They beat a 9-8 average Seattle team. And I was bad actually buying into them, thinking they had a shot at the Super Bowl. Okay, good scope. Let's see. Bills continue to run, even though they had some injuries on their defense. Cornerback Rasheed Douglas was out yesterday. Several linebackers. They jumped off onto a Pittsburgh on a 21-0 lead there. They hung on there, and they got the win. The Bills are rough, rugged, and raw. They've been there. They've been beat up. Now, they could still lose this weekend because they've got some injuries. But I think they're going to get a lot of those players back. We shall see. Awuku Saki. But right now, I feel like I've been right about this Buffalo Bills team catching their second wind this year. Okay, bad. Cleveland. I thought Cleveland with rested running backs here, I thought the Browns here would use Jerome Ford and establish the running game in Houston and try to lean on Houston a little bit and try to impose their will because they got ahead. They could not play for anything. They rested their starters in week 18. And then, of course, they didn't do that. They spread out. And they tried to for Flacco to outduel C.J. Stroud. It was a terrible game plan offensively. It was a terrible game plan defensively. Two things can be true. Yes, Stefanski can win. Probably should win Coach of the Year because of the tackles out and everything. But that was poorly outcoached, poorly executed on both sides of the ball. They were almost as bad as Dallas against Green Bay, but they were the road team and a wild card team. But yeah, it was bad. That was a bad scope there to me. I was totally wrong about the Cleveland Browns. Good scope. Chargers likely be the front runners to land Jim Harbaugh, according to Adam Schefter. They have finished up their interview, and we're going to see. Jim Harbaugh has interviewed. I thought that would be the best available job. You've got Justin Herbert, you got the left tackle, you got edge rushers there. Only thing you need now is a coach there to lead this team into the promised land. He hasn't been hired, but that was his first interview post last Monday's national championship. That was the first one. Now they've interviewed a few other people, but they want Jim Harbaugh. A lot of people won't. Washington wants Jim Harbaugh, I'd like to see Tennessee get Jim Harbaugh. But anyway, so that's your good scope, bad scope in a nutshell. Got Rich Ferris in the background there from Cumulus 1045 The Zone. That is the flagship for the Tennessee Titans. Had a crazy week last week. Hey, Rich, how you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Hey, let me ask you this little off-the-cuff question here. Have you ever seen anything like last week? Vrabel getting fired, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, Nick Saban retired. Have you ever seen such a busy, crazy week in just 1 week like that in sport? I don't think I've ever seen.
No, not at all. I mean, what a crazy news cycle, and it was like one after the other. There was no break. I was kind of, now that the Titans season was over, was kind of looking forward to a little bit of a break there before we get into the real thick of the off season. But 1 day down or 2 days down, and then they're firing Coach Vrabel, and you see Belichick gone a few days later, Saban retiring, and then I think another one, Pete Carroll, that wasn't expected. So, a pretty wild week. And then, watching the college coach shuffle too after Saban announced his retirement with Florida State and Texas and Oregon. So, I don't know if there's been that wild of a week just that soon after the college football national championship and the regular season of NFL.
Man, that's what I thought too. I thought it was just me. I had Mike Richmond on the program last week, and he'd been watching for a long time too. He's a few years older than my dad, and he's like, I haven't never seen nothing like that. I said, yeah, I don't know, a full moon or whatever, but 24 is definitely going to be different, man. I tell you, it's snowed in the last few days. How you been doing, man? I know you've. Did you work any of these? I haven't worked.
I'm working from home. I work from home today. Yesterday was off for the holiday.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, nothing too crazy right now. Like I said, just trying to keep up with this crazy news cycle, which was mostly last week, and right now just kind of see what happens with all these interviews and who ends up where.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: what was your reaction when you heard that Tuesday afternoon, 1 week ago today? Because, hey, look, Monday, we've got through Black Monday. I thought everything was okay, right?
I did, but
shot, dude.
Yeah, it was like Sunday during the game, even though they were winning. Started hearing these kind of rumblings and stuff, and you're just kind of like, well, there's a lot of smoke here. I'm not sure if what to believe right now. People's been saying all these different things, which a lot of people are wrong, and even just going with the fact that he was going to New England, which was never in the cards really, and we'll get to that here in a second.
Right, yeah.
But and with Gerard Mayo in his contracts was, and that's what I was saying the whole time too. Like, you want to have all these ties for him, but we'll get into that here in just a second. Yeah. So my initial reaction was kind of shocked. I knew there was something up, and I know Monday I heard something was going on with a potential trade. And so I was kind of nervous about that. And I like Coach Vrabel. I think he is a really good coach. And so when the initial, I initially thought that maybe he'll get traded. So it's kind of bittersweet. At least you're going to get some kind of compensation. Yeah, on Monday I thought he was going to be traded. And but then, Tuesday Amy Adams-Strunk decided she's just going to fire him. And and initially I was pretty ticked off because I thought that, he is a really good coach, and but going through the details and I kind of understand a lot better now, and so I kind of get why there was a rift there and why they ended up parting ways.
Okay, now that leads to the second question: do you think it was more Vrabel bumping heads with Carthon, or by listening to Mike Keith talk to Amy Adams-Strunk? I'm sure I played that on the program the other day. Works with your Flagship. Do you think it was because of the offense the last 2 years, hiring the in-house guy? They were 30th the year before last in 22. They were 28. Do you think maybe he was just because he was keeping in-house too much and not going outside to fix the offense? What do you think?
I think that was a very small portion of it. To start, him and Rain Carthon did get along. There was no apparent, rift there, really. Although Vrabel did not, a lot of news has come out and a lot of details have come out over this past week, and I really appreciate the article from The Athletic by Diana Rossini and Joe Rexroad, who really detailed a lot of different things that led up to this. And so in that, it mentioned that when they were there was a possibility that Vrabel was going to be fired last year with John Robinson at the end of the season. However, they decided to fire John Robinson, and Amy Adams-Strunk at the time was like, I want to give Mike Vrabel a chance to kind of go into another year. She really likes Mike Vrabel, and then probably about midway through the season, with it kind of not going as planned, I think she probably started getting some initial doubt. And then for whatever reason, this is the thing that's kind of bothering me, that the New England Patriots, him going into the Ring of Honor there, that whole situation rubbed her the wrong way, which I think is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. And I think that kind of started a little bit of her doubt. and the way they ended up the season with the losing over, from middle of last season to now only winning 6 games or whatever, or 7 games, that I think that it just kind of culminated, along with the fact that I think what ultimately the real decision is that she has a vision. The Amy Adams Strunk, the controlling owner, has a vision of what she wants done and how she wants it done here. And I think Vrabel didn't want to do that. I think there was this rift between the direction of where Mike Vrabel went once John Robinson was fired, wanted to have control of the roster, and Amy Adams Strunk does not believe that in that. She even in the article of The Athletic, it referenced that she was back to Jeff Fisher's last few years, how that didn't go very well. What we've seen with Bill O'Brien with control with Bill O'Brien, in Texas, how that ended, and now Bill Belichick, how that's ended. She just doesn't believe that the head coach should have full control of the roster. That should be more collaborative, and Vrabel wanted to have that control, wanted to have the overall say in the roster. So she tried to, this past season, I guess, come to a mutual agreement where it was a collaborative thing. Like, she did not put Ren Carthon over Mike Vrabel and vice versa. They were considered equals, and she wanted them to kind of work it out. And I think ultimately they did this year. But I know that Mike Vrabel thought that Ren Carthon wasn't ready for it to be a GM in this league, and actually wanted to hire his name escapes me, Ryan, the assistant GM that was under John Robinson. It was his right hand man. Wanted to hire him instead, which I think ultimately would have ended up him and Ryan working together on, and basically Vrabel having control of the roster. Amy Adams Strunk didn't want that to happen. She wanted to bring in Ren Carthon because how much she admired how the 49ers are running their organization, and wanted to make some changes there. And ultimately, Mike Vrabel did play along and was collaborative, but I think the more that she had the doubt set in, and that, I think ultimately there was some rift of the control issue there, and I think ultimately she decided that it wasn't going to work, because one sees it one way, she sees it another, and so you just can't have that moving forward, and I think that's ultimately why the decision was made. Well, I think that she thinks he's a great coach. She just didn't think they would be able to work together the way she wanted to.
I think, well, the way you're breaking it down, I heard a little bit of that. Donna Rossini, something came out about a comment that Vrabel made that Rossini referred to in that article. And then she also said it on one of the other, I think it was like Colin Cowherd, that he said something in regards to he don't feel appreciated here. Did you hear that? Vrabel saying that when he was in New England?
Well, he said basically that that how well that organization run, how great it was there. It isn't. He said it isn't like that everywhere else.
Okay,
so it was a very vague comment, and if the shoe fits, wear it. I guess if that's how you feel. That I don't know if he was necessarily referring to the Titans. I mean, he's been to other places as a player and as a coach. I mean, he played in Kansas City, he played in Pittsburgh, coached at Ohio State, coached at Houston. So I mean, he could be referring to other places, but I think that it's a little. I think it's a little. I don't think that it goes over well with me. Just if you're going to hang your firing over that. That just shows how emotional you can be in making these decisions, which it makes her, as the fan in me, puts up a red flag a little bit, because she did that with John Robinson. Now I think that he was on a downfall anyways. He was making some bad picks, had some bad drafts.
He went a little wild at the end.
Yeah, but it was after the AJ Brown game where AJ was in Philly and they embarrassed the Titans. She fired him right after that, so it was a very emotional firing, despite that he probably should have been fired. And it was sort of similar if she's hanging, a lot of weight into that comment from a day that he was being honored there. And I think honestly, just knowing Vrabel, who just kind of playing into the crowd and just trying to get a good reaction out of them, and I think that that's to make that a noted thing in this firing is kind of ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. But Carthon, from what you explained, though, it sounds like she made the right call. If you break down the whole situation,
I think if you can't have an organization or a team put together with a split group. You know what I mean? Everybody needs to be on the same page. Yeah. And so I understand it now after understanding that, they just weren't seeing eye to eye and they couldn't move forward together because one wanted control, the other one didn't want that person to have control. And that's just going to cause friction, the longer it goes. So I do understand that and get it. However, I do think Mike Vrabel is a terrific coach and gets the best out of the players that he has.
Good things can be true. Yeah,
and I think they just had a bad roster, over the last 2 years to try to work through it. And I know that Vrabel wanted to change the roster and change, the style of players he wanted. Yeah. And so I think they did a good job in this year's draft. And but one thing that is noted.
Andre Dillard, I remember you told me that last time we were on the program.
Yeah, there was some decision. Vrabel's been behind some bad decisions. He co-signed also with Isaiah Wilson in that draft pick with John Robinson. So I mean, nightmare. Yeah, and so I mean, there's you can't put all that on John Robinson. There was also some collaboration. Yeah. He wasn't going to draft a player that a coach didn't want. So I think that was also a red flag for Amy and didn't want the coach to have control because, maybe he wasn't going to be a good GM but looking at this draft with Rand, I think, I think that he did a pretty good job. However, there was a report that Ryan Cowden, that's the name of the assistant GM that I was trying to think of a minute ago. Ryan Cowden is one who kind of ran the board and set up the board. So I'm not sure exactly how much say he actually did have in the draft, but only time will tell because if Vrabel and Ryan Cowden was, in on this draft class is really good, especially if you end up with a franchise quarterback, a franchise running back, and a slew of left guard that's going to be really good. And, the whole draft class played this year. And so, only time will tell if the Vrabel, Ryan Cowden thing is going to work or if Rand Carthon is going to have a great draft this year, and only time will tell who would have been right. So, very interesting to see how it plays out here. And then I think Mike Vrabel, now being free agent, so to speak, is it's interesting. I haven't heard anything of anybody reaching out, but there's also a lot of rumors that he may just take the year off and relax and
there'll be 7 or 8
come back next year. Yeah.
So I'm thinking that she'll probably go opposite. I'm thinking of a guy like a Bobby Slowick. Does their connection? He was the offensive coordinator at Houston. He's very young. He's younger than me and you, man. That dude's 36 years old.
Yeah. I think.
So, who do you like that's been a candidate so far?
So they have about 10 candidates now. You can rule out Bill Belichick. You can rule out John Harbaugh. That's not going to happen here in Tennessee for the same reason why Mike Vrabel is fired, because Amy Armstrong does not want a coach coming in here and wanting control. Both those guys seemingly would want to have control of the roster.
That would make sense, though. That would make sense.
Yeah, so that's not going to happen here. But I do like Bobby Slowick. I do like Ben Johnson. And just connecting the dots with Rand Carthon coming from the 49ers organizations. Both those guys come from there.
Did Ben Johnson come from 49ers too?
I need to double check that.
But from Detroit, yeah.
But
he's still a hot commodity though.
But yeah, it's crazy to watch the Shanahan tree, how widespread it's become this past season.
Right.
You have seven of the playoff teams that were out of the 14 where Shanahan ran offenses, and so you still see quite a few of those still in it. Detroit, Packers, 49ers, Detroit, which I think I just mentioned that, but yeah, there's Miami was one, but yeah, there's a lot of Shanahan offensive schemes now in the NFL, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that Rand wants to do with his ties to that organization.
Yeah, yeah. So, who do you have somebody that would stick out? What do you think about a Todd Monken from the Baltimore Ravens?
I like Todd Monken, but I like Brian Callahan from the Bengals a little bit better. If I had to rank them, I would probably
interviewed him, right?
Yeah, I would probably put him and Bobby Slowick and Ben Johnson there in my top three. I'm not sure how I want to order those just yet, but those are my top three favorites in my opinion. Fourth is kind of a wild card for me. I love what Antonio Pierce is doing. I think he's going to stay in Las Vegas.
Another defensive coach. You're killing me, Smalls.
well, it's kind of I like what he brings and what he's done in Las Vegas in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So, I think it's like I said, a wild card, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to stay in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're going to hire him as the head coach. But, somebody like that, I mean, is very Vrabel-like, but I wonder if they would be just more collaborative and not want that control.
The defensive coordinator, Mike McDonald from the Ravens. He's worked with Jim and John Harbaugh.
Yeah. He's a good candidate too. I just find it hard for them to be. I find it hard to believe that they would bring in a defensive guy. I think they're going to go offense. I think they need to. Yeah. I think that they need to have somebody. I would love, if they want to, emulate the 49ers, and that's what a lot of teams are doing right now. Yeah. You got to stick with that offensive mind and get somebody from that Shanahan tree. So that's why I think either Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, Brian Callahan isn't from that tree, but he's been a proven offensive guy. Being in Cincinnati for a little while and been all over the league. I think his dad's was a football offensive lineman. So
yes, I think his dad was the coach of the Raiders back in 2002, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, maybe. I think he is in the. I think he's coaching like AFL or something like that right now.
Yeah.
But strong pedigree there. I like what the offense does in Cincinnati, even though their head coach calls the plays, but he's very, very involved with everything on the offense. And so, I think it's going to be an offensive side, the head coach, and that, I think those top three are very good candidates. I'd be surprised if it's anybody outside of that.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, I was ranking the jobs. The Titans are up there because they're second in cap money. The Commanders have the most. Tennessee's got that 7th pick. Mm-hmm. They've got second in cap money. A lot of good things can happen. How do you see this thing playing out as far as that draft is concerned? I
would say that the open head coaching job here is pretty enticing. I would say that the Chargers are probably the top because you already have your franchise quarterback. You have some pieces there that they can be successful just with some retooling. And then, Seattle and Las Vegas do intrigue me. I would probably put the Titans head coaching job opening probably right there in the middle of the mix of the teams that are available.
Yeah, I think I went about 4. Now, I got Commanders because they got a new owner. They got the 2 pick, and they got more money than Tennessee.
And that's another thing. They're the GM that they just hired is who the Titans tried to hire last year, but they denied them to interview him. Because he was John Lynch's right-hand man. Yeah. And so they ended up hiring Rand Carthon, who was this guy's right-hand man. And so he's now in Washington, and he's, that's another team that you got to, watch to see if there's a Ben Johnson or a Bobby Slowick goes to because of those 49ers ties. But yeah, they got money. They got some talent on the roster too. I don't think that they necessarily have to take a quarterback at number 2 overall, number 3 overall.
Yeah.
So that they have a lot there that you can go off of with and money too. I think it kind of sucks the people coming in didn't get a chance to work with Chase Young and the other defensive players that they traded off.
Yes,
but
but
going back to the Titans, I think they're probably 3rd or 4th best open vacancy. Like you said, they have the 7th overall pick. They potentially have the franchise quarterback. The jury is still out, just as Pickles just said. The jury is definitely still out. I think that's why they want to bring in an offensive-minded head coach to really develop Will Levis and make him the a elite guy. And so I think he could be with some right tools and some right players. And so I think just kind of looking at that and the money that they have to spend with the draft capital they have, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 years before they're really good. They could surprise us like Houston did this year with a really good draft class that just changes their whole team. But they definitely got to start with getting the offensive line fixed. And I think at 7, they got to go left tackle. And if Joe Alt from Notre Dame is on the board, you got to take him.
Too. That's exactly who I want him to get.
Yeah, him or the Penn State guy. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Wallow or something.
Yeah, either one of them. I mean, you got to get a franchise left tackle there. But if they can do that,
any chance they would trade Levis what if a Michael Penix is there at 7? And
no, I think they're going to stick with Levis. I don't think you want to do that.
Okay.
I don't think you want to, that would be a weird deal in my opinion. I don't know if you do that. I think you're tied to Levis. And the thing is Levis show he's got talent. He's got an incredible arm talent. He does. And he has good pocket presence for a rookie.
Around him. Yeah.
So, I think, outside of CJ Stroud this year, I mean, he played pretty well for a rookie. CJ Stroud was had an amazing year, and he's still in the playoffs. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they upset Baltimore. And
I was thinking the same thing. I was telling my dad last night that they're red hot right now.
Yeah.
And Baltimore, they didn't play. They didn't pay Lamar Jackson the week before. So
they've had two, 3. Oh, it would be almost 3 weeks off by the time they actually play. And you got a red hot, Houston Texans team coming in. And as much as I hate that as a Titans fan,
right.
I would still love for them to knock off the 1 seed Baltimore Ravens. Because as much as I, dislike the other teams in the AFC South, I dislike them much more than the Texans. So
ain't that the proof, brother?
So I have a feeling that could happen, and that if that does, you got the Houston Texans in the AFC Championship against either the Bills or the Chiefs, and with a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback. I mean, Houston's got to be on fire right now to get that lucky.
Yeah. You know what? I thought that the Browns would. They had the week off before. I thought they would try to impose their will, use Jerome Ford, run the football, try to wear down Houston. Instead, go for a wide and let's have Joe Flacco just throw it. And he's sitting there throwing interceptions, and then he looked like a guy that's 38 and kind of past his prime.
Yeah.
He looked like the Flacco that played at the Jets, not the one that played at the Ravens 10 years ago last year.
Yeah, it was a good run for him. I mean, thanks to the Browns, that's why Houston has the people on their team right now because of the Deshaun Watson trade. And so for them to actually beat them with what should have been their guys, I guess you would say, is pretty interesting story there, especially with Deshaun Watson sitting there on the bench.
Yeah. What do you think about these playoffs in general? Do you are you still shocked by Dallas getting beat like that? I'm still just beside myself, man.
I'm not, because Cowboys are going to cowboy. They're going to. It seems like clockwork for them, and I would hate it to be a Cowboy fan, just because you have that momentum going in, and then you're just one and done like that, and it's happened like 2 or 3 times in a row, and you're just so disappointed. But hats off to the Packers, the youngest team in the league. They got talent.
That makes me feel good about the Titans going forward. I mean, look at the Packers, man. It's like the light bulb just went off for Jordan Love about Thanksgiving when they beat Detroit.
About midseason, they just started clicking. They have 3 good young receivers. Jordan Love stepped up. You almost want to say Aaron who there in Green Bay, and so they've been impressive. I mean, and what they did with against the Cowboys is impressive. Now they're going to play the 49ers. We'll see how much momentum they have going in there. I'm thoroughly impressed with the Packers. Another Shanahan offense, by the way.
Right. Yeah, I know. And then Mad New Yorker, he hates Shanahan. I said, listen, dude, You've got. I love that zone blocking running scheme.
Yeah.
You need balance in this league, man. It's about offense and offensive scheme, and I do like the fact that teams have a general manager do his job. Have the head, like you just mentioned, Bill Belichick. He's a legend. But he's picking the players that were terrible. You know, I mean, golly, man. You got a good flow there in Houston, and you're seeing that counterbalance with a John Lynch, who was a former player. A lot of former players made pretty good general managers. Look at Ozzie Newsome. He was a former player with the Ravens here. You know, I think Carter
probably the best GM in the game over the last decade. I mean,
wasn't he right? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's got Jonathan Ogden, a Hall of Fame, Ray Lewis, a first ballot Hall of Famer guy, Ed Reed. So I'm optimistic about Rand Carthon. I like you said, look at all these players this guy got.
Yeah, this year will be. Well, now this year will be more so than ever. Will it be on him because he's going to hire the head coach?
Yeah,
he's going to put together this staff, put together this roster, and so this is a big year for him. And to that point, I'm kind of ticked off a little bit at ownership and not to say that Amy Adams is the only person involved with this. They have a president CEO that makes the decisions too, who I like a lot, Burke Nihill. Okay. But they're throwing him in the deep end now. I mean, you had Vrabel there to lean on, and their experienced staff, regardless if they, that defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator was great, but they had a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and so now it's all on Rand Carthon to make this right. So they're throwing him right in the deep end this year too for him, and so it's really their success is leaning all on him.
Yeah, my thing is, Rich, if you can simply put a veteran defensive guy with him, Sean McVay. Remember, he went out and got 70-something-year-old Wade Phillips,
another Shanahan guy.
Yeah, get a defensive guy to help you out.
Yeah,
So Slowick, he looks younger than me and you. He's very young. He's 36 years old. I talked to Jim Jeffcoat. He said he played with his dad. His dad played in the league. I didn't know that, but Jim told me that. So you want to put him with the veteran, maybe who got fired? Ron Rivera, somebody in their 50s, been around for a while.
Yeah.
Kind of help him ease into that. Get the young, Pickles will say, the techno geek guy, but put him with the veteran defensive guy, like a Vic Fangio in Miami. Let's don't go super young everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that's what they'll try to do. I think they'll try to have a very offensive-minded head coach, but they're going to bring in a DC that's going to be almost like a head coach too.
Yeah,
that they're going to. They've been preaching this whole collaborative thing, and I think in this weird vision that Amy Adams Strunk has, it does see where the head coach is very open-minded and it does have the overall say, but you're going to have a staff that's going to be like a bunch of head coaches, and everybody works together and makes things work.
Yeah. Uh-oh. You got little Rich Jr. there in the background there. Hey, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I think this is going to be a good thing. I think that I would be disappointed if they went defensive-minded, but I'm like you. I got a sense that they're going to probably go with it. If your guess, who do you think they're going to go? I'm thinking Slowick straight up. But
yeah, like I said, I think it's between Slowick and Ben Johnson and Brian Callahan. That's got to be the top three.
You can't lose with that three in my mind.
And I think Brian Callahan has a little bit more experience than the other two that I think could handle that responsibility. Where Slowick is really young. This is his first year as offensive coordinator.
Right.
But just to kind of go back to like bringing in guys, when they brought in Vrabel, they brought in a LaFleur. That 1 year later he's a head coach of the Packers, and so I kind of see that the reverse happen here. They bring in an offensive coordinator that's going to be the head coach and run the offense. You bring in somebody that's a DC that maybe a veteran guy that's just going to hang around for a year to get this thing going.
Yeah.
And ultimately you think that they'll hire good staff so they can elevate within if they have success there,
Yeah.
or have to bring in a new guy to run the defense.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's not Schwartz or Dan Quinn.
Well,
Dan Quinn
it's funny.
40-something points the other day.
They interviewed Dan Quinn for the head coaching job. I don't think that I don't see them going there.
Yeah.
Although I wish they would have hired him when they ended up hiring Ken Wisenhunt. I think he was. It was between him and Mike Zimmer, and I was like, please be either Dan Quinn or Mike Zimmer. I don't really want Wisenhunt, which ended up being a disaster. But
he looked like a coach, but he wasn't a coach.
He was a really good offensive coordinator, and well, at the time, San Diego, when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, he looked good then.
Rivers,
he came here and it was just dysfunctional the entire time that he was here, and that was probably the worst time as a Titan fan that you can think of. But I think that's what they're looking to do. I think they're going to bring in a young offensive-minded coach, probably from this come in some kind of way from the 49ers organization, and they'll find them a probably experienced DC to kind of be that that leader on the defense and somebody that the head coach can lean on, and those have to draft and hope that they have a turnaround like Houston did this year.
That'd be great. I was thinking just in my mind, I had a brainstorm. What about Leslie Frazier as a DC? He's been out of the league for a year.
Yeah, I mean, that's anybody Rivera, like that. Maybe, as
a DC.
I would love Ron Rivera here. I mean, he's an incredible coach.
Good with the
he just hadn't had a great run over the last few years, but him as a defensive coordinator would be I'd be down with that.
Yeah, somebody like that. I got in Facebook jail. I think somebody's hating on me. So
how does that happen?
I don't know, man. Somebody turned me. I think I was sharing something, and I guess it was something from Fox Sports, and I took one of their little logo things, and it was some kind of promo or something.
Oh wow!
I don't know.
They get copyright.
Yeah, it's always some 50-cent BS. So what time is your show? You still do your show at the variety Big Ten and Rich at 8:00. And is it released at 9 on Thursdays?
Yeah. Central time. Okay. I would say 9:00 Central Thursday nights. Big Ten Rich. Well, last week we talked a lot about the coaching hires and the playoffs and stuff. So if you want to listen to us, last week was a really good episode. Kind of talking about a lot of the same things we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And not sure what we're really going to get into this week. I'm sure we're going to talk playoffs.
What about all this crazy weather we're having?
Yeah, that too. I mean, it's like 9 degrees out here. Like 9 degrees where I'm at. So, with about 10 inches of snow outside. So
depends on where you live. Yeah, I've heated up my car 2 or 3 times. You're supposed to do that when it's crazy cold like this, so your battery won't die. I kind of wish I had doing the show from Tampa at 72 during the winter time, at least, Rich,
Yeah, migrate south, yeah.
Woo! Hey, man, if that's it, appreciate you coming on. And, hey, listen, I'll bring you back when we make this hire here.
Yeah, I'd love to be here. Just let me know, and we'll talk about it.
Oh, man. Appreciate it, buddy. Have a good night.
All right, see ya.
Yeah, man. Okay, everybody, I will be back tomorrow at the same time. I know that I've gotten everybody. Want to talk a little bit about that Detroit run. There were people crying in the stands. I was actually emotional. I was really happy for the fan base. I may even get Jeremy to come on tomorrow or something. So, Pickle says I should have got his opinion on that Peacock. Yeah, that I don't think anybody's too excited about that when you've got inflation like it is and just want to pounce. So I didn't watch the game, Pickle. I was playing my game and I was just glancing at my phone, looking for Pacheco to score. But these games will be really good. We got a great weekend coming up. I mean, Buffalo, Kansas City, Houston, and I think Rich is right. Houston's going to give Baltimore a little bit more than they want to deal with. Now, of course, if Baltimore goes in there and picks off Stroud early, it could be over with. But That's going to be interesting. Lions, this is a good run for the Lions. They're going to be hosting Tampa this week. That's going to be not a good game, but a great game. And, of course, the 49ers, if they go in there sluggish, which I don't think so, traditionally the Niners run the ball like nobody's business on Green Bay going back a few years under LaFleur. So that's going to be a good game, everybody. We'll go back. We'll talk about all that stuff tomorrow and, of course, Thursday. And then Friday we'll have Carlos Mad New Yorker Chavez. So have a good night, everybody. I'll see you same place, same time here on Sports Scope.